How's it going, guys? This is Steve from Red Riot Games, and we're going to be doing a deck profile with our latest and first, I guess, online official champion for a Arsenal event we had here on our Canadian Discord, and we have Rob, the offended cat, here, going to be doing a deck profile. So, Rob, why don't you tell us about your Mechanologist deck and kind of run us through what your deck is looking like?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I'm Rob. The deck I chose to play for the tournament was Dash, the Mechanologist. I want to start out by saying that this deck was heavily influenced by someone you guys might know, Matt Rogers from New Zealand. I focused a lot on his video on the deck profile he made to make this deck, and he was a huge inspiration for it. Right when I started the game, Mech was a card deck that I really wanted to play. And just the aesthetic of it, the kind of boards that advantage, card playstyle it had, was one that made me really want to play the deck. And so I built the deck mostly around his video. I made a few changes to it that I'll kind of highlight as we go along, but I don't want to take credit for it. I think he deserves most of the credit for this deck. So, Hero Dash. I'll go through the equipments first. For the gloves, I mainly play one of two gloves, the Ironrot Gauntlet or the Null Rune gloves, for obvious reasons. If I'm against a Wizard or against Viscera, the Rune Blade, I'll go with a Arcane Barrier 1. And against most other decks like Ninja, Guardian, Warrior, I'll play the Ironrot Gauntlet. The boots I play are the Achilles Accelerator, obviously the best boots for Mechanologist at present time. The best weapon, Tecloplasma Pistol, and I always start the game with one induction chamber, as per Dash's effect. For the headgear, I am playing the Arcanite Skullcap. Great all-around card. Most of the time, 1 defense, sometimes 2 defense. Has Arcane Barrier 3. I would say probably the best headgear in Dash. She does have the other one, the Viziertronic model, but it hasn't really worked out for me, so I opted for Arcanite Skullcap. And, of course, the chest piece, Teclo Foundry Heart. People have asked me why I play this, or if the Tunic is viable in this deck, and my take on it is that for the most part, Tunic is a great alternative to the Teclo Foundry Heart. This deck is more of a control style, so the resource generation that you build with Tunic is about on par with the Foundry Heart, but the only advantage Foundry Heart has over Tunic is that it does have 2 defense, and it has a battle worn effect, so you don't destroy the item or the equipment when you defend with it, which is great against on-hit classes like Ninja, Warrior, or Guardian. So those are the equipments.
I'm going to have to assume that it's another class you're going to have to be worried about is Brute because he swings for so much.
Yeah, and that's a class that I luckily didn't have to play in the tournament, but I did have a battle plan against Brute. So I'll first start out with the blue pitch cards. I'll go through the main deck first, and then cover the side deck afterwards. So here I have a category of blue pitches, which I call the blue pitches that I'm okay pitching 100% of the time. I will most likely never play these in a game, because the deck doesn't like to boost that much. It likes to set up items, charge the items, and attack with the pistol. So first of all, 3 locked and loaded blue, 3 combustible courier, 3 overblasts, and 3 pour the mold. The only one that I might play is pour the mold, because I am running 2 Teclo cores in this deck, and this is just a great card to play with Teclo core, because you can only play an item that costs 0 with this card. It's not the yellow or red pitch, so an asterisk on this card, I might play it sometimes, but the other 9 for sure are pitch fodder, almost 100% of the time. So that's 12 blue here. And once more mech cards come out, I'll be happy to swap any of these 12 with newer, better blue cards from the mech class. Now here are the blue cards that are part of the main deck and that I will play from time to time, but 50% of the time I will be pitching them also. So we have 3 0 to 60. Absolutely great card. It sets you up. It's a 0 cost boost card, and it triggers your Teclo Foundry Heart, your Achilles Accelerator, and other cards maybe like forgot the name. I don't want to say something stupid here. The High Octane, I'm sorry. So great card for triggering those abilities. We have 3 Overloops, 3 Throttles, 3 High-Speed Impacts, 3 Magnetic Shockwaves, 3 Pedal to the Metals, 3 Zipper Hits, and here are the 2 Teklo cores that I talked about a little bit earlier. So that's a total of, I believe, 23 cards, plus the earlier 12. So 35 blue cards for the deck. Very important for getting off your items and charging them every turn. And it allows you to kind of defend with half of your hand and still have 6 pitch value to be able to use your pistol and your items. So heavy blue focused, and that's mostly because it's a control deck. So you want more resources to play with. The 2 Keckle cores is something that Matt's deck doesn't run. He runs 1. I found that, first of all, it's a great card, and because of its blue pitch, you can still pitch it instead of playing it. So it's not like a dead card in your hand. You can't defend with it, which is one thing, but since the pitch is blue, it's still great. And it does combo with the Pour the Mold, which I talked about earlier. So getting another counter on it is great. It's also a great defensive card, even though it has 0 defense. And the reason I say that is because if you play it on the field, it does generate 2 resources per turn, and it does allow you to defend with more cards from your hand, knowing that you will have a free 2 resources next turn to use on your items and your pistol. Sorry. So I like running 2. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but that's my take on the card. And so yeah, 35 blue cards in total, which I will always use. And I'll move on to the yellow pitch, and then the red pitch. And then I'll talk about the sideboard. So for yellow, I've only got 5 cards here. 3 Zipper Hits and 2 Spark of Genius. The reason I cut down the Spark of Genius from 3 to 2 is because I am running a few extra items in the deck. I do have the 2 Teklo cores. I always run 2 Plasma Purifiers as well as 2 Induction Chambers. So I feel that with more cards in the deck, you're more likely to draw them instead of having to get them with Spark of Genius. And the card does have a premium to pay. You have to pay double the cost of the item basically to get it from your deck. So I don't like playing it that much, and I think almost half the time I'm using it to defend. So I reduced it from 3 to 2 for the tournament. It seemed to work great. I haven't had any issues with drawing it when I didn't need it. So yeah, that's all for yellow. Next, the red cards. So the red cards, they're mostly when I want to go, more of like an aggressive style. They are available in every matchup. So 3-0 to 60, 3 Zipper Hits. Now, Command and Conquers. I play them all the time. I don't know. Some people might say that it's not great to play them all the time, but I just love having them in the deck. They are great for putting on pressure. You attack with the pistol. They take the damage. You get a sense for that they like their hand cards and they might like their arsenal as well. So just put the pressure on with Command and Conquer. Absolutely great all-around card. I always run 3 of them. And for the items, so this is the second Induction Chamber. The first one I showed earlier, and 2 Plasma Purifiers. I like running 2 because when you get them both off, your pistol goes to 4 damage. And 4 is kind of like a nice magical number because the most that a card can defend for from hand at face value is 3. So later in the game, if you have both of these out, you are pressuring your opponent to defend with 2 cards from hand for a single attack, which is pretty valuable. Or they take the 1 damage, or they have a defense reaction like Sink Blow. But 4 damage is great in the deck, and because the deck will most likely go to the end game when the decks are pretty thin, 2 of these is just amazing. So that was the core deck. That was probably around 50 cards. So I do have to supplement 10 more cards into the deck. So I'll go through the sideboard. Okay, so sideboard, pretty thick sideboard. The defensive cards I run are 3 Fate Foreseen here, a great defense reaction. 2 Sink Belows. I'll just find the other defense cards. 3 Unmovables, red, and 3 Unmovables, yellow. against Guardian, Brute, Warrior, I'll probably run all 6 unmovables. It's just a great card for stopping them in their tracks. Guardian from stopping the crush effects. Warrior from stopping any on hit they get from their attack reactions. So super good cards, unmovable. This is more of the ninja package. This is where you want to stop ninjas from getting their on hits, but you don't want to pay too much because ninjas attacks are like 3, 4, 5. So I'll run 5 of the cheaper defense reactions against ninja. And here are 2 Tome of Fiandals and 3 High Octanes. This is just an awesome combo. You play a High Octane, draw a card, and then whenever you boost, you get an additional action point. So what you could do is play High Octane, play a 0 to 60, boost successfully. Now you're at 2 action points. You can play one of those action points for Tome of Fiandal, draw up, and then you have a pretty big hand at this point, and you have your action point back. So great combo. I typically only play it against Ninja, though, because you feel like you have a bit more breathing room. They're not like they're not going to swing big at you, so I feel like you kind of have the opportunity to get this off. And I have some more aggressive cards. Oops. There's 2 high-speed impact red and 3 overloop red. I would play these probably against Brute, against more mid-rangey decks, just because you don't feel as pressured to play them. And that's the sideboard. So I believe that's all I had to say about the main deck plus sideboard. Yeah.
All right, so a few questions. So what were some of the matches that you played in this event? So I understand we had 4 rounds, right? So what was the first round? And kind of walk me through the way you kind of like approach that deck, because I believe you said you didn't run into any. You said you didn't run into any brutes in the event. There was 2.
There were 2. I know. I got pretty lucky on that aspect. Yeah.
I got to think that with the new card in Crucibles, I think it's Arg, the one that destroys the items.
Arg Smash, Arg Smash.
So with something like that, with a deck that does like to build up on items, like how do you approach that kind of a fight where you got intimidates and you got an opponent who has ways of getting rid of your items? Like what is your approach with that?
Yeah. So most of the time the deck plays out more control style, right? You build your board state, you have your items, you have your pistol. Every class besides Brute will not be able to handle your items, but Brute has the Arc Smash. And what I do in that case is I transition the deck more into a mid-range deck. I'll still have 2 induction chambers and 2 plasma purifiers, but I won't add more to my deck. So I won't run the 3/3. What I'll do is I will substitute I'll add in from my sideboard rather cards such as these 5 red boost cards. They do a lot of damage and they let me chain into pretty awesome turns. And I will run the High Octanes and Tomes of Fiandal, as well as the red unmovables. So that's my plan against Brute. I'm not too worried about them destroying the items, although I haven't had much practice against them. Maybe it's like the most devastating thing in the world, but I feel that with a deck that can kind of keep up the pace with more boost cards against Brute, that's a bit my thought process. And maybe an unpopular one, but with more games and more practice, I'll probably know for sure what's the best strategy. But so far, that's the one.
I'd have to assume you're going to be trying to hold on as many blue cards nearing the end of your turn, so that you can play the unmovables, because of his Intimidate's going to have for him to get rid of cards in your hand. So I mean, was it pummel? A pummel into any attack that has Intimidate and then discards a card from his hand. I mean, I could see the setup where he's getting rid of 3 cards in your hand before attacking, right? So then
it would be very unlucky, I think, for me to not have a blue card in my hand at the end of that. I run like a ton of them.
Yeah, more than half your deck, right? Or almost half your deck.
Yeah, I would say more than half. I think it's 35 cards.
Yeah.
Out of about like 60 to 65, roughly. So, if I do have a turn where I have 2 blue, 2 red, let's say, which would be more unlikely, I feel. Leaving me with 1 red card would obviously be terrible, but more often than not, I will have a blue card to use. And they only Intimidate 3 times on their more lucky turns. I think typically it's more like 1 or 2, more like the average of 2 there. So typically, I think I'll be okay with 1 blue card left. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hypothetically, if they're lucky enough to discard a massacre while playing a pummel, so
Yeah.
they might get you for the 3. But I mean, we're talking like very serious, like 30 fighter here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I understand that, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
what
And
did you end
I'll
up
just
fighting?
add
Sorry?
on. Oh, sorry to cut you off. I'll just add on that for them to do that, they would have had to keep like their full hand of 4 cards to typically get off like all those intimidates and still
Yeah.
do a lot of damage. So they would have probably eaten some of my damage as well before that turn. Like I would have probably pushed for like a good like between 8 to 10 damage the previous turn. And if I'm seeing them not defending the first pistol, I'll probably go in with something bigger, like some of my red boost cards to like do like 5 at a time. So I'm gonna push for as much as I can instead of holding onto their hand, and hopefully I will have done more damage than they will have been able to do to me. So that's kind of the
Big
the
swings back and
middle
forth.
ground there. Yeah, exactly.
So the next thing we had to ask here, okay, so what were some of the classes that you fought in the event? I know that you had a very strong opponent in Demos, right? And I
Yeah, that was a
know
sweaty game.
there was. Did you fight any ninjas in the event?
No, so to be honest, I've practiced mostly against ninjas before the tournament and did not fight a single ninja. So the battle plan for them, had I fought a ninja, would have been the 5 cheap defense reactions here, just to be able to prevent on-hit effects as best as I could. Like, 1 defense from hand, and then 1 of these from arsenal, or 1 of these from hand as well. And I would have played the high octane, if I can find it, over here, high octanes and Toma Fiandel combo against Ninja. So that's kind of the package I would go for. The main goal for Ninja is just block the on hits as best as you can. Don't worry too much about the Kodachis. I would typically, so always take the first Kodachi, is my opinion. The second one is a bit more of a middle ground, but if you feel like you have a defense, well, if you do have a defense reaction, you could feel safer taking the second Kodachi and just making sure to block the third hit. As long as their math is still active, you want to make sure you block the third hit. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I would guess that probably one of the more frequent matches you had was in this event was Warrior, because I think more than half the event was Warrior, and Guardian, because the other half of the event was
the other. It was probably 3 each. I think I don't remember the numbers, but there were quite a few of each.
I think I fought 2 Warriors. No, a Warrior, 2 Guardians,
Maybe
and
3.
a Brute.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I fought.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah. So first 2 games were both against Warrior players, and in those matches, so Warrior's a very tricky class to fight against. I think probably one of my weakest matchups. And I struggled in the second game, and I felt like I was, at the brink of a loss there. But against Warrior, I feel like it is one of the most aggressive classes. They have great on-hit effects. They like to draw cards with Steelblade Supremacy, dominates with the Iron Song Determinations, get the sword counters if they hit twice in one turn. So you really want to be able to defend the first sword hit, because if they don't hit the first time with the sword, they cannot hit a second time because of Dorinthia's ability, and the sword has like a once per turn effect. So if you block the first sword hit, you're typically good to go. And what I use for that is my best friend, Unmovable. So I would play all 6 Unmovables against Dorinthia. The yellow one blocks for 7 if it's from Arsenal, and the red one blocks for 8 from Arsenal. That's typically enough to get over her sword, plus any attack reactions she can put on top. I will typically, like, if I know I'm blocking for 8 with a red Unmovable, I'll probably throw in an equipment for 1 and add the 8 to make it 9, because there are possibilities of reaching 9 damage with her Dawnblade, with like a Singing Steel Blade plus like Razor Reflex. They've all buff for 3, which is like the magic number, I feel, with Warrior. So you want to get her on 9 defense if you can, if you're a bit uncertain. And if you don't, just make sure you have some more defense for her second hit if the first one goes through. I would also run the cheap defense reaction. So against Warrior, just go full on control. Just block everything she has, and in the end, win with your items. Just put enough pressure at the end of the game to win the game. That's the main strategy.
So I guess after that, you must have fought. After your first 2 rounds, I'm guessing you fought 2 Warriors back to back.
Yeah, back to back.
In your third one, I'm going to assume is when you started fighting the Guardians.
Yeah, so matches 3 and 4 were Guardians, and boy, is Guardian a tough matchup. The first game went okay, but the second one was like, the finals was like, I think we were both at around I think I had 10 HP near the end. He had about 5. We were both down to like the bottoms of our deck, and I made a few key mistakes in that game. So first, I'll talk about what I planned to do. So against Guardian, you definitely have to run the unmovables. Blocking the crush is super key to the longevity of the game. Especially the one that I think it might be Spinal Crush. That one prevents you from getting Go Again from any of your cards, and any charge on an item and the pistol costs you an action that gives you Go Again. So if they get Spinal Crush off, your turn's dead. So the ability to block, a big attack, and with Dominate too. So having unmovables when a class has Dominate is just like probably the best case scenario. So playing all 6 of them is what I did. And against Guardian, I didn't play the cheap defense reactions because honestly, against an Intimidate, or rather a Dominate, they won't do much for you. They'll block 4 of like the 11 damage that's coming at you. You still take 7, still get crushed. So they're not amazing against Guardian. But what did work for me was the wrong package. Was playing the where did I put them? Oh, here they are. Sorry, the offensive red cards here. So these are cards in my sideboard. They are like the more powerhousey, I would say, boost cards. So cost 1, deal 4, cost 2, deal 5, and if you boost successfully, you get the Go Again. So Guardians love keeping their hands, like all 4 cards, for the Dominate effect that costs 2. If they're running the new Crucible of War Gauntlet, they'll want to spend 3 to buff their attack, and then swing for 14 damage if they can. But the good thing about these cards is, first you attack with the pistol, they take damage. If they defend, you're in a good spot, because then you know that they probably don't have a great turn coming up. So, but if they do take the damage, you're free to kind of just go boost crazy and just try to do as much as you can to them before they can swing at you for 14. And if you've got an unmovable in your arsenal while you're doing this damage, you feel great. You're kind of like dealing free damage, and you can block their crush with an unmovable next turn. Overloop's great because if it hits, it goes to the bottom of your deck. So you can do this kind of pressure style play and then expect to draw these back near the end of the game. So when your deck is a bit lower, you still have the pressure from Overloop. And if they're not defending anyway, for 5 damage, you're pretty much going to get it off. So these cards were great to play. In the game I played, in the finals, I did not print the Overloops, and I regret that. That's one of the first mistakes I made. They weren't in my deck at the time. The other thing I did is that I boosted a little early in the game, and I boosted away one of my Plasma Purifiers. So my end game looked like 2 chambers and 1 Plasma Purifier. The max damage I could do with 1 pistol attack was 3. And if I had the second one, I could hit for 4. So that hurt a lot, and it allowed him to defend for 3 every pistol hit, and the match wasn't really going anywhere. He's got the Anothos hammer, so end game, I'm taking like up to 6 damage a turn. So that was the other mistake I made, and I probably wouldn't have been as crazy about boosting that early in the game. I only would have boosted if I see they're taking damage, and I know I can push in with the boost damage. If they're blocking, you don't typically want to boost. You want to play it a bit safer. So, pitching the red cards for your pistol charges and your item charges is not the end of the world, because you'll draw them at the end of the game, and that's kind of where you want them anyway against Guardians. So, that's the Guardian matchup, and would have played differently if I could have, but still came out on top. Luckily, it was a really close game. Yeah.
Now the real question is, what would you have done if a Ranger?
No, I don't want to crap on Ranger too much. I'm sure it's a very fun class, and I have 0 experience against Ranger. I don't know what I would have done. So there's the quick answer. I would have probably played. I know Ranger has on-hit effects, and they're not crazy damage. So I would have probably gone with the cheap defense cards as I would have with Ninja, just to prevent on-hits. Because they can be crazy. I think some of them make you lose Go Again. This is just from memory. I haven't really looked at the matchup that closely, but
that is something to worry about.
Dude.
I would worry about a Rogue Ranger. Dude, Rogue Ranger coming in the event. All right, well, I want to say thanks so much. I am sure we're going to see some changes in this deck potentially with our event next Friday, if we're going to see you in that event. So because you gotta maintain this the championship. You got the belt. You are the guy to beat now.
I am just a guy from Canada who started playing this game a month ago, just like everyone else.
And you're already at the top.
Oh my god! Well, we'll find out. I mean, Mech classically great, great class. Obviously, it stood the test of time with Matt Rogers in New Zealand. So I know it could go far, and I'm glad that I learned enough of the matchups to get ahead. I have a lot more to learn, and hopefully I'll be able to learn more before the next matchup or the next tournament rather.
Well, one of the only ways to do that is to get your matches in on the Canadian Discord. That would be one of the main ways. Now, for those who are trying to reach out to you via social media, what are some social media links they can find you on?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I do have a YouTube, although it's not very active.
What's your YouTube?
It is ArtFreak38. That's my tag.
All right, ArtFreak38. I mean, he's an artist.
Arts Freak. Well, that's a funny story. I got that account name when I was like maybe 12 years old.
Didn't we all?
It's just the cringe, But yeah, I used to draw a lot, and people knew me as like that artsy guy. So yeah, I asked a friend, like, can you give me a name for my YouTube/Facebook? Yeah, Art Freak. Okay, I was like, cool. All right, I tried putting it in. There were 37 other Art Freaks, so okay, Art Freak 38. Let's go.
I will always know you as Offended Cat.
But you can, and my YouTube does have an Offended Cat picture as well. So.
All right, well,
and the Discord too. You can find me in the Canadian Discord. Just Robert McCauley, my full name there.
There you go. He's putting his name out there, guys. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time to do this interview. I do look forward to seeing more brews coming from you in the future. Potentially, we'll see this deck get ironed out even more as you're playing more matches and learning up more about them and getting ready for that Ranger match.
Definitely.
So we'll see something strong from you in the end. We do have Monarch coming, so you never know. You never know what new toys we're going to get for all these different classes.
I am looking forward to other blue pitch cards that I can put for Monarch to replace the other 12 that I don't really play as much. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, thanks very much. This has been Steve from Red Riot Games with Rob McCauley. I'm going to call you Matt Rogers. I just want to call you Matt Rogers right now. We'll call you Rob Rogers.
Awesome.
All right. Well, anyways, this has been Steven Jennings with Red Riot Games with Rob here. Or I like to call him Offended Cat. You'll be seeing more of his games. If you guys can actually join into the Canadian Discord, which I'm going to link in that video here in the description, you'll be able to find this guy, challenge him, take his crown away from him. All right. Thanks very much, man. Take care.
My pleasure. Bye.